Mình đã mở phòng chợ Hưng. Hello, welcome and thank you for joining our webinar today on the topic, the potential of district cooling in Vietnam. This webinar is a part of the HVAC's R Vietnam 2021 show, the 15th International Exhibition on Heating, Ventilation, Air Conditioning, Air Filtration and Purification and Refrigeration Systems in Vietnam. My name is Peter Lundberg and I'm the head of operations at the Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, or APUEA. I will be the moderator of the session. Before we start, I want to thank our session partner, Informa Markets, for creating this event and for having us today. I also want to give some Zoom information in regards to asking questions to the speaker. There are three options. Number one, you can use the chat box and write your questions to the speakers, and please address to which speaker you want to ask the question. During the Q&A session, you can also raise your hand and ask the question directly to the speaker. The third choice is to use the Q&A box, where you can also write down the questions to your speaker. Okay, first now I would like to hand over to Mr. BTT, who is the General Manager at Informa Markets in Vietnam, who will give his welcome remarks.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone from near and afar. Thank you for joining the potential of district cooling in Vietnam webinar session. I would like to thank all our speakers in advance for taking your time off to be with us this afternoon. I would also specifically would like to thank the supporting associations, without whom I do not think this program will run. These associations are VISRE, Upward, APUEA, and also the VGBC. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Peter, for offering to host this session. Vietnam, well, I mean, Vietnam has experienced tremendous growth over the past decade. I think 2020 and 2021 will see a pause before we start growing again. I think this opportunity allows us to perhaps reflect on what would be the better way forward for the longer term. And when you start looking at the energy consumption in Vietnam, it is high and it's getting higher. We cannot keep on putting down power stations to compensate for our 10+% energy consumption increase year on year. I think the element of energy efficiency comes into play in our quest to reduce our carbon footprint. And within that energy efficiency program, district cooling becomes an important element. Given that the cities are expanding, our resources are shrinking. And personally, for me, I think the split units that we see everywhere we go in Vietnam is perhaps a bit unsightly. But if we were to embrace district cooling technologies, then infrastructure planning will probably take a little bit of will change a little bit, because we have to plan a bit longer and a bit more detailed. I think these are the key challenges as we move and as Vietnam moves and develop over time. But with the technologies that are available and the support from the international companies bringing the services into Vietnam, I think we see a lot of opportunities being made available to the players in the district cooling field. With that, I would like to hand the session over to Peter to start the program proper. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. BTT, for giving that introduction to the Vietnam and some developments on the cooling side and also the power or energy side. Okay, so I would like to start to introduce the session, and I have prepared a few slides. So we can go to the next slide. So today we have 5 speakers to give presentations on these topics: the rising cooling demand in Vietnam, sustainable urban cooling in Vietnam cities, district cooling, the Singapore story, district cooling case study, delivering carbon neutrality, and the energy saving benefits of using variable speed drives for district cooling. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A session, and you as an audience, you're very welcome, of course, to ask questions and get engaged in the session. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so first of all, cooling produces about 10% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and about 80% of these emissions come from cooling, come from energy use, and the other 20% comes from direct emissions of refrigerants, leakage of refrigerants, basically. And as you can see on the other graph here, you can see that the cooling demand has changed quite a lot in different regions and different countries in the world, which of course China is by far the biggest, but also in India and Southeast Asia. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the increasing cooling demand is driven by economic and population growth in the hottest part of the world. And as you can see here, the number of cooling degree days, a way of measuring the cooling demand is to see the red parts is the most red parts are where in the world where you have the highest cooling demand. Next slide, please. So looking at the cooling demand in Vietnam, Vietnam has about 3,000 cooling degree days. And that is quite similar to neighboring country you see as Thailand and Malaysia, Singapore. They have a little bit higher, but not that much. But you can also see that the AC utilization rate is only 7% in Vietnam, whereas in Thailand it's about 30%, and in Singapore, Malaysia is around 80%. And you can also see countries with much less cooling demand, such as China, Japan, and Korea, have quite high utilization of ACs, 60 to 80% as well. So there's a gap here in Vietnam that to fill, basically. And the cooling demand in Vietnam will grow and follow economic and population growth. Next slide, please. So there are some ongoing trends to follow. First, on the left-hand side, you have the number of cooling degree days. Basically, the cooling demand is growing in the ASEAN region due to climate change, and it's getting hotter, basically. The second one, the middle graph, shows that the GDP per capita in ASEAN is growing as well. And the third one is showing that AC ownership is growing as well, quite a lot, much more than, for example, in Japan. Next slide, please. And then the fourth trend, another trend, is the urbanization trend. And that also plays an important role because today about 60% of the global population lives in cities, and about 75% of energy consumptions comes from cities. And in 2050, about 70% of population in the world will live in cities. And this has led to the growth of mega cities, which basically are cities with a population with 10 million or more. And today there are 33 mega cities globally, where 17 in Asia Pacific. And in 2030, this number is expected to reach 43 globally and 25 in Asia Pacific. So this urbanization trend leads to a higher population and energy density, which favors centralized cooling systems, such as district cooling systems that can deliver up to 50% energy savings compared to conventional cooling. Next slide, please. You can go to the next slide, please. That's all for my introduction. I just want to shortly mention here that we arrange an event in November called the Global District Energy Climate Awards. It's an international high-level event. We'll gather energy experts from all over the world in Bangkok to discuss district energy. Okay, thank you. I want to go ahead and to our first speaker today, who is Ms. Tu Cuc, who is the National Ozone Coordinator of Vietnam under the Department of Climate Change, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. And Ms. Tu Cuc will share her insights on the rising cooling demand in Vietnam. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be here today and discuss a little bit about the rising cooling demand in Vietnam. Can you go to the next one, please? So there's going to be some brief overview of the RAC sector growth in the country, the refrigeration market, as well as the main refrigerant that being used, and some update on our national cooling action plan. Next one, please. So as you can see from this graph over here, we have quite a large driven development in terms of the RAC sectors in recent years. The demand for room air conditioning in Vietnam ranked the second highest among the ASEAN countries. And due to the climate, it is getting more increasing, and the demand for cooling appliances are causing the increase in greenhouse gas emissions in the country. Next one, please. The refrigerations and air conditioning market is continuously increasing since 2011 until 2019. There's some situation with the COVID situation that is causing things down, but in general, the number of units sold in the country has been up to 2.5 million units in 2019. The figure can show. The majority of air conditioners are small capacity one, which accounts for 90%. And we have a big market share between the big manufacturers like Daikin, LG, Panasonic, Carrier, York, Chan. Next one, please. And we can tell that the annual growth rate is from 10 to 12%, and the use of HFC in this refrigeration market is getting increased due to the fact that the CFC is now being controlled by the Montreal Protocol and the country with limit quota. And also the inverter technology in air conditioning is being applied more and more. So then the figure here we show, the figure is quite not so up to date, but then we will have more updated with the National Cooling Action Plan, which is coming in a short time. Can you go to the next one, please? Okay, so what are the main refrigerants that being used in the country? I have to mention that in household refrigerators, they're mainly using HFC 134A, but for commercial, there are more types of refrigerants being used. For example, the HCFC 22, HFC of different types like 404A, 507A, 407AF. And we see the large application is the seafood processing sector. That is the major industrial refrigeration system that we are used. And 20% of the total freezer system are using HCFC 22, which is quite a challenge for us to in the future when we have to slow down the process of using that. And the 75% has changed to NH3, and 40% of the cold storage capacity are still operating with HFC 22, and the other two type of HFC 404A and 507C. You can see the figure here. Next one, please. So in terms of room air conditioners, the refrigerants are quite, how to say that, focused. They're only main two type, the R22 and R32. So the R22 is being reduced right now as the country is getting more restrictions in terms of HCFC used, and more inverter using R32 technologies are being promoted. Next one, please. So this figure here, you see that the data that we have from 2011 till 2017 of the main type of refrigerants that being used in the country. And I have made some change of the first one. So the HCFC 22 for this period is constant at this level, the 3.6, below 3.6 million tons, which is the control amount by Montreal Protocol. But since 2020, this figure has reduced to 2.6 million tons, which is the new updated figure that the country has to control HCFC. And we have an increase of HFC by 28%. We do have the updated figures, and we can calculate it that it is getting increased quite dramatically. We have even like 3 or 4 quarters more times than the previous years. So then we can see that there's a shift in the market as well as in the business one. Next one, please. So I want to talk a little bit about the National Cooling Plan, which is one of the activities that being run by MOIT, which is being led by the Ministry of Industry and Trade in cooperation with MONRE as the focal point for Montreal Protocol implementations with funding from KSAP. The objectives of the NCOP focuses on room air conditioning and to accelerate the transformation to energy efficient and inverter technology. So the plan is to provide context and reasoning for enhanced policy actions to complete initiative to remove or address technical barriers. Then it is making the case by different scenario analysis, and then it can be incorporated in the policy framework in Vietnam. So this National Cooling Plan is under preparation, and we are now circulating for comments, and it would be ready in coming months. Can you go to the next one, please? So the development process of the cooling plan has gone through a number of steps. For example, the first one is the review and analysis of the existing policies, regulatory and institutional framework that are existing in country in both energy efficiency and refrigerant management. So secondly, we assess the room AC market to establish a baseline for estimating the impact of potential policy interventions. Third one, we analyze by doing projection the room AC growth based on expected cooling demands. And four, provide analytical underpinning of a proposed new minimum energy performance standards, MAPs, for considerations. And the next one, we lay out the strategy and consider for incorporations in the regulatory framework. Can you move to the next one, please? Okay, so in this table here, you can see that we have 3 proposed options shown in the table. The option 1, 2, 3 with the MAPS value increasing by 20%, by 47.1%, and by 83.9%. I'm not sure if this is the same table. Sorry, but at the moment, Vietnam fixed speed AC revenue energy is 70% of inverter technology with the refrigerants 410A and R32, which are the main refrigerants. So it is the best option for us to go with option 3. With option 3, and also it will qualify the 5-star level and also fit in with the Kigali phase down timeline of the country. Okay, can you go to the next one? Okay, I want to say a little bit more about the refrigerant management and the Montreal Protocol. So since being a member to the Montreal Protocol from 1994, there have been a number of different regulations that being established and now controlling the import and export activities of the controlled substances. Most recently in November, the law on environmental protection has been established, and that asks the government to provide a detailed decree in order to guide implementation of the law. And also the minister will have to promulgate a list of controlled substances for further management activities. I'm not sure if I have another slide after this. Can you move to the next one, please? Okay, thank you. So there would be a decree and a circular which is coming in November before the 1st of January of 2022 that will put in the regulations for refrigerants control in Vietnam. And in preparations for the management activities to come, we also need to develop a national plan for management and eliminations of controlled substances, and this is due by 31st of December 2023. The reason that we have it in the coming 2 years is that we will start with controlling the consumption of HFC since 2024, as what the country has committed to Kigali Amendment. And at the moment, it is a time that the country is calculating the baseline consumptions. So therefore, we will have the data from this year, which is 2020, over to 2022, so that we can assess the situation of our controlled substances and by sectors. And with that, we will do focus and identifying whether we will categorize by the types, the period, and the sector of use in order to identify what are the limits for the country in the coming year. So the Kigali Amendment, which is working throughout from 2024 until 2045, which is a very long period, and it is affecting quite many different sectors, including air conditioning, including refrigerations, including fire suppressions, and many other applications that it can have. And for that reason, it is very important to cooperate with different stakeholders, involving stakeholders like ministries, and to define the responsibility of the, and also what contribution can come from the private sectors and all the enterprises. That is very important for the successful implementations of our phase down plan. And by that, I think I have my presentation finished. Can you go to the last one? Yeah. And if you have any questions, you can always contact us at the Department of Climate Change, responsible for the ozone unit and implementation of the Montreal Protocol, without mentioning also the UNFCCC, with our informations hereby. And I thank you for the chance taking me here, and also will be happy to have any comments and feedback from you afterward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tuku, for that very interesting presentation and sharing information about the sector, refrigerant sector growth and cooling demand growth, and the national cooling plan for Vietnam. That seems very comprehensive, and also talking about the importance of controlling HFCs and how you work with the Montreal Protocol and Kigali Amendment. Those parts are very important when addressing greenhouse gas emissions as well. Okay, so it's time now to move on to our second speaker today, who is Ms. Huang Ta, who is a senior program officer at the Global Green Growth Institute. Huang will share her insights on sustainable urban cooling for Vietnam cities. Welcome, Huang. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, the organizers, for inviting GGI to share our works at the webinar. My name is Huang Ta, the Senior Program Officer at GGI Vietnam. Today, I'm here to share our project on sustainable urban cooling in Vietnam cities. Next one, yes, this one. Global Green Growth Institute, GGI, is a treaty-based international intergovernmental organization established in 2012 as the Rio Plus 20 United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. Founded to support and promote the mainstreaming of green growth, GGI programs and projects target economic growth that is environmentally sustainable and socially inclusive. Next one, please. Headquartered in Seoul, Republic of Korea, GGI has 39 members with operation in different regions. Vietnam is a founding member of GGI. Next one, please. GGI works across 5 priorities areas considered to be essentials to transforming national economies, including sustainable energy, sustainable landscape, green cities, green investment services, and climate action and inclusive growth. Next one, please. GGI has worked in Vietnam since 2012. As a trusted advisor to the government, GGI has delivered results in the finance, planning, water, urban, and energy sectors. In the next 5 years, GGI's objective in Vietnam is to increase green energy production, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, increase capacity to access to climate finance, and to develop green master plans and bankable projects for Vietnamese cities. Next one, please. So our work in GGI Vietnam are divided to 3 different key pillars: green finance, NDC implementation, sustainable digital transformation. So the project on sustainable urban cooling is under the pillar 2, supporting the NDC implementation in Vietnam. Next one, please. Now I will focus on the project on sustainable urban cooling in Vietnam City that we are implementing. Increased temperature leads to increase the energy demand due to the use of cooling equipment. Vietnam's rapid urbanization and fast-paced real estate sector are driving emissions from cooling, which are expected to increase under the business as usual scenario from 33 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in 2017 to 80.7 metric tons of carbon dioxide in 2030. This growth is being driven largely by lack of comprehensive urban planning and municipal enforcement of building standards, lack of awareness or capacity to develop urban cooling projects, lack of finance for passive cooling interventions, low-level building efficiency codes, and also low industrial efficiency. Vietnam cities are extremely vulnerable to the effect of climate change. Heat waves are already increasing hospitalization in Vietnam cities. Poor households often experience increased exposure to threats. In urban areas, heat island effect further worsens this risk. Indeed, extreme urban heat is also a major public health issue that is being relatively overlooked in Vietnam. Next one, please. maybe I'm not going to talk about the policy landscape in Vietnam because Ms. Tu Cúc already talked about that. Only want to emphasize that efficient cooling is a synergies between adaptation, mitigation, and socio-economic development in Vietnam. Next one, please. And the next one. Yeah. So I'm talking about our project now. The project is funded by the Kigali Cooling Efficiencies Program, we call KCEP. It is implemented by UNEP and GGI, partner with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. The project will support 2 pilot cities of Cần Thơ and Tam Kỳ, selected to represent the range of municipal administrations in Vietnam, to adopt the urban cooling action plans, finance pilot projects, and unlock municipal budget for extreme heat and cooling. Interventions will include improved urban designs, nature-based solution, passive cooling measures, municipal incentives, district cooling, and public procurement. Next one, please. So Vietnam is divided into 58 provinces and 5 municipalities. Municipalities are the highest ranked cities in Vietnam. Municipalities are centrally controlled cities and have special status equal to the province. So Cần Thơ is one of the 5 municipalities in Vietnam. It is located at the heart of the Mekong Delta. The city is the economic, cultural, and social development motivation of the Mekong region. Cần Thơ city has triple household income in the period from 2004 to 2010, but about 8% of the population is poor, with over 20% of the urban households living in temporary housings. Next one, please. Provincial city is the type of second tier subdivisions of Vietnam. Tam Kỳ is the capital city of Quảng Nam province, located in the south central of Vietnam. Cities in Vietnam in general are classified into class from 1 to 5, while Cần Thơ is a class 1 city. Tam Kỳ is the next one, the class 2 city. Urban poverty in Vietnam is concentrated in smaller cities and towns. Replicable model of capacity support to the smaller cities, such as Tam Kỳ city, to mitigate and adapt to rising temperatures is critical. Tam Kỳ is one of the highest risk cities to climate change in Vietnam and face additional challenges from frequent tropical storms. Next one, please. There are many interventions for urban cooling. Increased wind cover ratios in new urban areas and consideration of more diverse wind cover with a greater cooling effect, like green building, green neighborhood, and green industry municipal and provincial incentives. Improved and tailored urban design approach and planning guidelines to increase shading, airflow, and reduce urban heat island. Climate adaptive design of green communities and buildings, such as shading facilities, natural ventilation, both outdoor and indoor, orientation for better ventilation and daylighting, light roof, landscaping, and so on, can play a key role in reducing GHG emission and energy consumption for cooling. As the fast simulation result in Tam Kỳ and Cần Thơ, it can contribute to shift as much as 18.5% of cooling peak load, save about 20 to 30 of air conditioner operation time, and about 12.6 of cooling electricity in 2030. If it's further combined with electric fans in residential buildings, a saving of about 38 of air conditioner operation time can be achieved in 2030. Next one, please. Public tendering of district cooling projects integrated with building efficiency measures, increase efficiency and use of not-in-kind refrigerant in large or commercial buildings. Building retrofits such as like passive cooling, cool roofs, insulation, applicants, and so on in municipal buildings, for example, in social housings. Urban cooling action plans, including local zonal policies, incentives, municipal investment pipeline, integrated into municipal climate action plans, green growth action plan, and updated or new extreme heat plans. Another intervention can be like self-financing models for municipal intervention on cooling and extreme heat. National financing vehicle to fund cooling, urban cooling action plan projects, including upstream project development, evaluating funding options for non-commercial projects and also commercial projects. Next one, please. Here are the 3 scenarios analysis we prepared for the project with a comparisons with the of the business as usual in 2017. So the first scenario is a passive building energy efficiency design. The second one is active equipment energy efficiency improvement and HFC phasing out. So scenario 3, edge cutting cooling technologies in urban areas. Based on the analysis, urban planning data, power demand, and also existing cooling norms across the 2 pilot cities, the BAU situation in different years are calculated. Next one, please. Under the BAU, the cooling electricity, GHG emissions, and refrigerant charge amount are calculated. The installed cooling capacity, cooling electricity consumption, GHG emission, and refrigerant charge amount under different scenario in 2045 are also calculated. And here we present here the scenario combined in the table for Cần Thơ and Tam Kỳ. So you can see in Cần Thơ, the installed cooling capacity in 2045 is reduced almost a half in compared with the business as usual. GHG emissions and also the volume of refrigerant are also reduced to almost 1/3 of the scenario combined in compared with the business as usual. Next one, please. For Tam Kỳ city, the BAU in Tam Kỳ in 2045 is much less than Cần Thơ. However, it's also clearly shown here that the scenario combined is also significantly reduced in GHG emissions and also in the amount of refrigerant in Tam Kỳ city. Next one, yeah, this one. So our project, the main objectives of the project include to enhance regulatory framework at the national and local levels for sustainable urban cooling in Vietnam. Also to increase capacity, responsibilities, and more effective actions for urban cooling. To increase green investment and innovative financing mechanisms for urban cooling projects. Next one, please. So here are the key components of the project. The first one is local policy enhancements. A complicated mix of issues need to be addressed, including poor urban design with insufficient wind cover, lack of municipal capacity and budget to enforce building efficiency standards, a lack of extreme heat planning, and public health adaptation and prevention program. So the UCAP, the Urban Cooling Action Plan process, takes cities government through a systematic process to access the opportunities for enhancing cooling efficiency. The project works on both tier 1 and 2 cities to address the needs of the urban poor in smaller cities. Working across both levels of urban authorities would enable technology exchange and leveraging efficiencies in financial mobilization for cooling for funding cooling initiatives in smaller cities. The project will also look at municipal funding model for non-commercial projects and also recommend how to fund dedicated officers and actions on this. On the in the component 2, the project developed 2 feasibility studies for 2 projects ready for the next steps of investment mobilization. With respect to financings, the Environmental Protection Fund is already successful operating, but does not support cooling-related projects. No other national funds for cooling has been identified. Municipal investment in sustainable cooling projects is extremely limited, and no district cooling projects could be identified. So dedicated cooling fund as part of the Environmental Protection Fund is designed, aiming to mobilize commitment from public budgets and international donors, designed to fund investment and upstream project development on urban cooling. So the component 3 of the project will support Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment to increase the inter-ministry dialogue on cooling and also integrate sustainable urban cooling into relevant central strategies, plans, decrees like the National Strategy on Climate Change, the decree under the Environmental Protection Law, or the Developing a National Cooling Action Plan. Next one, please. So the overall impact of the project is to contribute to achieving NDC targets through an approach to urban cooling in line with Paris Agreement, Kigali Amendment, and the Sustainable Development Goals. It's also to empower cities to tackle rapidly growing cooling demand and also to protect urban population from extreme heat. Next one, please. That's all about our project. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hongta, for that, sharing that very interesting presentation on your project, Sustainable Urban Cooling in Vietnam Cities. It's going to be very interesting to follow the development of your project and see how things turn out. There are definitely things to do in terms of cooling, and I'm sure there are opportunities available too. Okay, so we're going to move on to our third speaker today, who is Steve Sea, who is the head of business development for district cooling at the SP Group. Steve will present today on the topic of district cooling, the Singapore story. So welcome, Steve. The floor is yours.
Yep. Thank you, Peter, and the organizers. My name is Steve Sea from SP Group, and today I would like to share with you our experience in implementing district cooling in Singapore. Next slide, please. Yep. So SP Group, we are a energy utilities company, right? Operating in Asia Pacific. Now we own and operate the electricity and gas transmission distribution network in Singapore, and as well as part of Australia, mainly in Victoria. Now we also provide billing and metering services to 1.5 million residential homeowners in Singapore. Now Singapore District Cooling, SDC, is a subsidiary under the SP Group, and SDC owns and operates the world's largest underground district cooling network in Singapore, and currently we have operations in Chongqing and Guangzhou, China. Next slide. Well, district cooling is not a new technology. The International District Energy Association, IDEA, has been around for more than 100 years old, right? And around the region, countries such as Middle East, Malaysia, and Singapore has been tapping on such systems, but with varying degree of success. Now, we need to recognize, that there are multiple challenges to implement district cooling, right? You start off with, construction, operations, maintenance, implementing the tariff mechanism, and even promoting the value of district cooling to the potential developers, right? And as such, for DCS to be successful, it is critical to have a partner with relevant DCS experience. Yeah, next slide. Now, and in Singapore, we are providing chilled water to the Marina Bay Financial District. You look at the picture on the right, right? The commercial building from One Raffles Quay and One Marina Boulevard, all the way to the left, the iconic Marina Bay Sands Integrated Resort, and even Gardens by the Bay. Now, this was a design, build, own and operate contract for 30 years. Right, we started operation in 2006. We have 3 plants interconnected in a network, and the combined capacity of the 3 plants are roughly around 60,000 RT refrigerant ton. And we are right now into its 15th year of operation. Now, next slide. Now, for those who are not familiar with a district cooling plant, if you look on the left, right, a district cooling plant, what it does is that it centralizes the production of chilled water, which is then transported through a piping network that is shown right now in the blue, right, to the buildings for air conditioning use via heat exchangers, which are located within the buildings itself on the right. So instead of having this chiller plants in the buildings itself, what you have right now are only heat exchangers, right, in the building itself, and this helps to then distribute the chilled water to the building for air conditioning use itself. Next slide. Now, we are a very firm believer of the design, build, own, and operate, or what we call as a DBOO model, right? With in-house expertise to provide, end-to-end solutions. The district cooling plants, are basically large-scale infrastructure projects. Thus, there is a lot of considerations in terms of, maintenance, future maintenance, even future expansions, and retrofits of the plants, right, are all very important factors that has to be considered even at the initial design phase. Next slide. Now, let us look at the key benefits to district cooling. Yeah, so one of the key benefits of having district cooling, right, is what we call as asset efficiency, right? Which leads to savings in terms of capex and space due to using lesser equipment. Now, very simple model, right? You have 5 buildings. You have each building operating 1 chiller and 1 spare, right? If you centralize the plant together to serve the 5 buildings, what will happen is that you will be able to reduce down the number of spares, and hence you save on both capex and space for both your plant rooms as well as the cooling towers at the rooftop. Right. Next slide. Yep. Can you press on? Yep. So this was a study that was conducted by one of our national agencies some time back to understand basically the state of chiller plants in individual buildings itself. And the conclusion was that an average of 200% spare capacity that is lying in each building. And what this means is that for every 1 chiller that is operating, you have actually 2 spare chillers sitting there. So the potential for savings in terms of space and equipment is tremendous if we can integrate the plants together. Okay, next slide. Now, another key benefit of district cooling is higher energy efficiency, right? In the district cooling plant, we have been able to consistently load chillers, right, close to their design capacity and at their most energy efficient loading level. Similar to driving a car, right? If you drive a car in the city, you are always accelerating and braking, which is very inefficient, right? However, when you are driving on a highway, right, there is minimal stoppage. Your engine is running at constant RPM with better fuel efficiency. So for district cooling, we drive on the highway. Next slide. Now, we have been also able to constantly load and operate our equipment at its full capacity and most efficient point through the use of our thermal storage. So our thermal storage we have in terms of ice thermal storage as well as chilled water thermal storage. And this thermal storage reduces the need to operate an additional chiller and hence, part load inefficient conditions, right? The many in-building chillers face today does not apply to a district cooling plant. Next slide. And because of the way we operate the plant, right, and the way we use our thermal storage, we have been able to consistently outperform many of the district cooling plants around the region itself. Okay, and lastly, district cooling also allows better utilization of roof spaces. Right, we have been able to unlock the value of rooftop space. Right, typically that's being used for cooling towers for lifestyle amenities. And a very good example is our Marina Bay Sands. Like, can you click on the slides? Go on. Yeah, you can see over here, that's where, the rooftop space, which was supposed to be used, for cooling towers, can now be converted into a swimming pool, right, for the hotel users to enjoy. And with scale, we are able to implement very cost-effective waste heat recovery systems, right? They are able to harness the waste heat from the district cooling plant itself and provide hot water to the hotels and the convention center in the Marina Bay Sands itself. Next slide. Now, we think we can do much more with district cooling, right? We are piloting our first residential township, Tengah, using district cooling concepts. And we are talking about, an area of 700 hectares across 5 districts, 300 housing block of flats, and which is going to be home to 42,000 households. Right? The township will, of course, include, amenities such as schools, retail malls, and neighborhood centers. And the residential centralized cooling system is expected to be at least 30% more energy efficient than the conventional split unit air conditioning that the home uses today. Now, and the centralized cooling system, right, will also provide chilled water, not only to the residents, but also the commercial facilities within the township itself. Now, this will help reduce the overall energy demand and consumption of the township. Next slide. Now, and this model of in-building plants, right, with district cooling concept, have allowed us to venture overseas. And we had our first success in Chongqing, China, with the developer Capital Land, right? And this was again, a DBOO model, 20 years contract, and involved 2 thermal plants, right, of 6,000 RT each, to serve both the cooling and the heating demands of the development itself. Now we are providing both chilled water and hot water for air conditioning and space heating purposes. This system has currently been in operation since September 2019 and will help Capital Land save $30 million across the whole 20 years. Now, Vietnam, with its growing, energy demand, have its own challenges with respect to energy security and stability, right, as what has been mentioned by my 2 previous speakers. And this is where we think district cooling coupled with thermal storage capabilities will be able to help to mitigate some of these challenges. Now we have a team in Vietnam, like offering integrated energy solutions such as solar PV, energy storage, as well as district cooling and heating itself. Next slide. And we are growing, our energy portfolio in Vietnam. We have partnered BCG Energy, right, in a joint venture to develop renewable energy projects. Next slide. I have left, the contact details of my colleague, Fat, in this slide for those who are interested in further discussion. Now I've come to the end of my presentation, and thank you for your time and attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Steve, for sharing your insights in the benefits of district cooling and also your projects in Singapore, in China, and also sharing your potential for doing district cooling projects in Vietnam. Very interesting. We're going to move on to our fourth speaker today, who is Gary Chui, who is a Senior Manager and Product Portfolio Manager in Greater Asia at Johnson Controls. Gary will present on the topic of district cooling systems case study, delivering carbon neutrality. Welcome, Gary. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gary Chui from JCI Johnson Controls. Pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about on a case study and also to share some of the best practices that we have in some of the district cooling system project that we have undertaken. Next slide, please. So as for what I know, Vietnam has also made a pledge to go for net zero carbon by 2050. And I have shown a chart here, which is showing some sort of a correlation between the economic growth and also the greenhouse gas growth. And you will see at the top of the chart, which is where Vietnam is sitting. Whilst the country is enjoying a very rapid economic growth, we are also seeing the greenhouse gas emissions in the country is rising significantly over the last 20 years. So in order to achieve this net zero carbon emissions goal, there is a lot of work to do. And I think from the previous speaker, it's also shared some of the insight that one part of that district cooling systems could come into play in Vietnam, as what we see in other Southeast Asia countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Hong Kong, and also Australia. Many of these countries has undertaken district cooling projects and has been very successful and shown with a track record of a significant reduction of energy consumption and also the carbon emissions. Next slide, please. So in chiller context, actually, we know that the chillers is one of the major equipment in a large cooling systems, and typically it accounts for like 2/3 of the cooling energy consumption. So it's a big consumer in terms of the HVAC, in terms of the cooling supply systems. So in terms of the carbon footprint, if we look into the carbon footprint or greenhouse gas emissions due to the use of the chillers, actually there are two aspects on that. One on the left is called the direct emissions, which is because of the use of the refrigerants. Because refrigerants, some of the refrigerants are a greenhouse gas by itself. So when we use those refrigerants like HCFC or HFCs into the chiller equipment during the life cycle time, there will be some leakage or loss of the refrigerants to the atmosphere, and that becomes a part of the greenhouse gas. So that part is called the direct emission. But to the right side, it's a more significant part that you see, which is called the indirect emissions. And that is primarily related to the energy use of the equipment throughout the equipment life. So for the big picture that you are seeing in the slides is the direct emission typically accounts for like less than 5% of the total emissions of the chiller And most of the greenhouse gas emissions are really coming from the energy use of the equipment. Next slide, please. So today I pick up a district cooling systems in Australia, which is called a Barangaroo. And what is so what is special about this site is really this is the first and the largest carbon neutral site in Australia. So basically it's a urban redevelopment projects that you see on the picture on the right with the commercial establishments, hotels. It's a mixed use development. And it has been achieving probably the highest level of sustainability in the countries, with a lot of sustainability awards that you can name, and also reaching the country highest green building certification rating. So this redevelopment projects has been using with district cooling systems. In the bottom you see the major parameters. It's using the typical centrifugal chillers, large tonnage centrifugal chillers with an installed capacity of 52,000 kilowatt, and with the chill water temperature. And one thing is special about you see the site is located next to the Darling Harbour front. So this site actually is, instead of using the freshwater cooling tower, is applying with the seawater, direct seawater for the heat rejections. Next slide, please. And there are two best practices that I would like to mention in this project that has been adopted. One is we start with from the system design perspective, that this district cooling system has been designed with one goal, to provide a low lift environment for the chiller to operate. So what is so-called the low lift, or what does the lift means? Because this lift, in terms of the centrifugal chillers, it does have a lot of impact in terms of the efficiency performance. So what lift actually means is, in terms of the compression of the refrigerants, is the refrigerant pressure differential that the centrifugal compressor has to overcome. So for centrifugal compressions, if we are able to create a lower lift design conditions or environments for the centrifugal machine to operate, that means that it can have less work done and to deliver a high, and be able to deliver a higher energy efficiency. So that logically, if we look at the lift, that is the pressure differential between the cooling side, which is in the evaporator, and the heat rejection side and the condenser. What we will try to look into is what can we do in order to narrow down these differentials by either rising the chill water temperature on the evaporator, or to look into the lowering the heat rejection temperature, which is what Barangaroo has been done. Instead of using the freshwater cooling tower and getting in the Sydney Harbour water, the chillers will be able to operate with a lower heat rejection temperature by having the seawater between 15 to 26 degrees C year round. So that helps to lower from the heat rejection temperature, that helps to lower the lift, which is the pressure difference for the compressions. The other things that has been adopted in the design is what we call a series counterflow. So traditionally, maybe I will elaborate that in the next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. So traditionally, if you look at the left-hand side of the slides, the chillers are mostly arranged in the so-called a parallel arrangement by putting the units side by side, and we have a so-called a design conditions for the selection of the equipment, so all the chillers in parallel are basically using or following with the same set of conditions. So, for example, for this chiller number 1 and 2 on the left-hand side in parallel arrangement, what we call the lift, that these 2 chillers will be operating, will be defined by the 2 temperatures, 2 leaving temperatures, which is the chill water supply temperature from the evaporator, and the heat rejection medium leaving temperature. So in this case, in this example, will be 35 and 7. So the difference will be 28 degrees C to symbolize on the lift that these 2 units has to overcome. So if you look at the right-hand side, we are by just arranging the 2 units in a different manner in terms of a parallel arrangement, we put it into a series arrangement, series counterflow arrangements. And at the same time, we use a larger delta T across the chill water circuit instead of 7 to 12 on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side is 7 to 17, which is a 10 degrees C of delta T. You will see the difference. The 2 chillers will be operating at a lower lift conditions. So on the upstream chillers, you see that the upstream chillers is required to deliver a chill water temperature, which is 12 degrees C instead of 7 degrees C. Whilst on the heat rejection side is still on the 35. So the operating lift that the upstream chillers has to overcome will be the 35 minus 12, which is 23, which is 5 degrees C less than the traditional parallel arrangement. On the downstream, on the second chillers, which is the downstream chillers, same case. If you look at the temperature set that the downstream chillers is operating, the lift that is of these downstream chillers will be 32.2 minus 7, which will be 25.2. So on an average of these 2 units will be 24.1, which is like 4 degrees C less than the traditional parallel arrangement. And this 4 degrees C of lift or temperature reductions actually would translate it into something like a 10%, over 10 to or 12% kind of efficiency improvement. And in addition to the chiller energy efficiency, this series counterflow arrangement also help on the pumping side. Because of the use of the wide delta T, if you look into the chill water supply circuit on the evaporator side, with this wide delta T of 10 degrees C, you can significantly reduce the pump flow by 50% compared to the parallel arrangement. So that helps a lot in terms of the reduction of your chill water pumping energy, and also it provides opportunity to downsize your pumping equipment. And particularly if you are in the district cooling systems, that your piping would certainly might be stretching for a long length or long distance. That would also help to reduce the pipe work and lower your whole chill water loop construction cost. So there is a lot of benefits along with this series counterflow arrangement in terms of the efficiency and also in terms of the initial cost. Next slide, please. Another best practice that has been used in this site is they are looking because of the primary goal of being a net zero community of this project. So there are some ways that say out there they are using certain ways to gauge what will be the climate performance of the equipment, of the major equipments. So for chillers, it's also the same that we are looking into the life cycle carbon emissions of the chillers that is being chosen. So for in chillers context, and usually we will be looking into the chiller performance, energy performance in a way that by looking into the so-called COP, the coefficient performance of the equipment, and most of the case would be the full load conditions, which is representing the design or the worst case conditions. But however, by looking on this so-called the on paper efficiency value, that doesn't really tell us a lot or giving a very good insight in terms of the overall carbon performance of the equipment. Because if we look into the overall carbon performance of the equipment, well, we have to look into not just a single point of conditions, but an overall energy consumptions based on the locations, based on the operating conditions of the unit, real life operating conditions of the unit, what I call it as a real world operations. And also have to look into a life cycle way. So there is a tool which is called or a matrix called the total equivalent warming impact, which is also one of the best practice recommended by the Australian Institute of Refrigeration, Air Conditioning and Heating with a handbook. That is a very simple tools to use that helps to define or to analyze, including both the direct impact due to refrigerants and also the indirect impact due to the energy use of the equipment during its life cycle. And for our yacht equipment, especially for the large tonnage centrifugal chillers, we are also looking into the same context. Other than the energy efficiency values of the equipment, we also have the TEWI, the total equivalent warming impact analysis, along with the equipment that we select. So that will help the decision makers in terms of looking into their climate performance or finding ways or finding the right combinations to achieve the net zero carbon goals. That will give a very good insight on where it stands in order for them to make the informed decisions on that. Next slide, please. So I take on this case and do a TV analysis just to show everyone what the climate performance between the left-hand side, which is the traditional way of using a constant speed centrifugal chillers for this district cooling, and using freshwater cooling towers put in parallel arrangement. And on the right-hand side, which is based on the Barangaroo configurations, by using the variable speed centrifugal chillers, seawater cooling on the heat rejections, and the series counterflow arrangement on the chiller plant. And you will see from the two TV table, which is at the bottom. On the left-hand side, can you click on the slides, please? Yeah, on the left-hand side, you see that with the traditional configuration, traditional equipment, or traditional put in traditional configurations, the carbon emissions, the TEWI value, which is represented in the actually is in the carbon footprint in the metric tons of carbon equivalents. It's like more than 10,000 metric tons, and this is for one unit. And if you take into account for two units, that would be 200,000 tons, metric tons. For the units putting in the traditional manner. For the same unit, if we apply into the Barangaroo configurations, you see that on the right-hand side, the two TV values, adding the two TV values, which is representing the downstream and upstream chillers of the series counterflow pair. For the same two chillers, the TV values is only 131,000 metric tons, and that means in terms of the carbon footprint, by using the equipment in a series counterflow arrangement, and also by having a good design or low lift design that helps to reduce the lift that the centrifugal chillers, the large centrifugal chillers, has to operate within. You can see that the carbon emissions wise and also the energy consumption wise on the top, on the two numbers that you can compare. The energy consumption, one is close to 7 million of kilowatt hours, and the other one is only 4.4 million kilowatt hour, and that also represent a significant amount of OPEX saving on that. Next slide, please. For Johnson Controls, other than the traditional large centrifugal chillers, actually the industry is also moving towards with the next level of technology. And out of that, we are also having a new type of centrifugal chillers, which is using the magnetic bearing technology. And other than the bearing itself, we also, this magnetic bearing centrifugal chillers, now we are having a larger size on that, which is up to 2,000 tons. And also, because of the Kigali agreement, and which there will be HFC phase down in near future. So this new generation centrifugal chillers is also designed with the low GWP, climate-friendly low GWP refrigerants. So for magnetic bearing technology, in the past few years, it has been available for smaller size, and now we have expanded the range that also have these future technology products that is available for district cooling systems. Next slide, please. So every country is different, and there is no one solutions for all, and especially for district cooling systems, different countries have different energy landscape, energy diversity, and applications. So other than the centrifugal chiller products, which is using electricity, there is also in our portfolio, we also have the absorption chillers that can be used with the waste heat or renewable source of energies, and that diverse portfolio will help to match the energy diversity of each country specific needs on the district cooling. Next slide. Okay, I think that's come to the end of my sharing here, and thank you very much for your attention, and your comments and questions are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Gary, for sharing those your presentation and for sharing your project in Australia. And also, I think it's very interesting to see how the importance to optimize, temperature settings or the settings of the chiller plants to really minimize the energy consumption, energy efficiency. And you see, you can do a lot of things, but just choosing the right temperature levels and to put the chillers in a series instead of parallel and things like that. So I think this is very interesting. Okay, so we're going to move to our fifth speaker today, who is Tiong Yeo, who is the head of motion business at ABB Vietnam. Tiong will present on the topic energy savings and benefits of variable speed drives in district cooling. So welcome, Tiong, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter, and sincerely appreciate the organizer for giving the opportunity to ABB to share our insight on energy saving and other benefits with variable speed drive technology, or commonly known as inverter in the district cooling context. Next slide, please. My name is Tiong Wah, this head of motion business for ABB Vietnam. Of course, I'm not a HVAC engineer, but from the electrical engineering and automation control background perspective, and happen to be actively involved in HVAC market, and would like to take this opportunity to share with you how key electrical equipment can improve or impact the efficiency of a district cooling. Next slide, please. So quick introduction of ABB. We are a global technological company in electrical and automation, over 130 years of history, operating in 100 countries with 110,000 employees. Next slide, please. We are present in Vietnam since 1993 and currently over 200 employees with office in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and a factory in Bắc Ninh, and also a workshop in Ho Chi Minh City as well. Next slide, please. So why district cooling? In Southeast Asia, especially in the area like Ho Chi Minh City, I think all of us know that we always, in Ho Chi Minh especially, hot outdoor, but we always have indoor winter. Okay, most of us are using air conditioning in offices, okay, and shopping mall and everything. So of course, this building itself, all the buildings in the big city like Ho Chi Minh, okay, this building account 45% of the greenhouse gases. And another interesting part is basically the cooling in the commercial building can account of more than 50% of the consumed energy. And if we have a district cooling that have been concept has been emphasized throughout basically the previous speakers, okay, we can actually reduce the carbon emission dramatically. Okay, and of course there will be also an opportunity for renewable energy like thermal or ice storage, as highlighted by Steve previously. Okay. Next slide, please. And what is ABB role in district cooling? And we know that in cooling application, okay, basically 80% of the load, electrical load, are from electrical motor, okay? And do you know that if 80% of the electrical load is actually powered by electric motor, okay, be it compressor, pump, cooling tower, everything has an electric motor, okay? So if this is the case, okay, up to 60% of the energy can be saved by adopting a variable speed technology, which is commonly known as inverter. And of course, on the other perspective, up to even 30% additional energy can be saved by adopting a higher efficiency motor, electric motor. Let's say, example here is from IE3 to IE2, where in Vietnam context, I think most of the case that we are still using IE1 to IE2 level, okay, and some building, green building, they may be using an IE3, okay. Next slide, please. So, of course, VSD, or commonly known as inverter, okay, is a power electronics controller that regulates the speed of the motor. So, and basically in ABB, we have the complete drivetrain technology, what we call is actually a digitalization opportunity for our customer. So in case in fact, you choose to implement a variable speed technology in your cooling system. So basically, you can also have the benefit to adopt the digital technology from us, where all this equipment can be monitored real time, cloud from our cloud-based solution. This is what it shows here. Next slide, please. So coming back to the context of cooling, in the context of district cooling. Okay, so after outsourcing, okay, the district cooling to chiller plant, where the chill water system come into your building, okay, basically you still need to distribute this cooling water, okay, to the heat exchangers in a separate and fan coil unit in a separate floor level. So basically, you can have the also the adoption of a variable speed drives, okay, to you can have the adoption of a variable speed drives, and basically this will increase the efficiency dramatically. Okay. Next slide, please. And we know in city like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, okay, basically land cost is a big challenges, and we have one of the highest premium rental probably in Southeast Asia, and it's increasing 4% every year. Every gross floor area or GFA is a premium if you are a landlord, and if there is a compact and space saving solution, which we can save up to 25% of the GFA in the project, this will be an interesting context. Okay, on the district cooling, you may have a chiller plant already, maybe outside in the building, and in further to that, there will be a further opportunity, okay, by adopting some technology from us. Okay, next slide, please. So typical electrical installation or HVAC installation today in most of the building in Vietnam actually are based on mainly the centralized control or partially decentralized control. What does it mean? So in centralized control, meaning that you have a big electrical cabinet, everything is basically the switch gears and the VSD that or so-called the inverter will be installed in a centralized location, housed in a very big cabinet and in a chiller plant or electrical switch room. Okay, partially decentralized, meaning that you still have a quite sizable, basically main switchboard or switch gears, and but there are some equipment, okay, electrical equipment you actually install near the fuse or near the component. In this example, where actually you see that the electrical switchboard or the controller are installed beside the fan unit. Okay, next slide, please. So in this example, previous example, it take up actually valuable floor space. So what if, okay, now there is a kind of a concept or solution that we call decentralized installation, meaning that you can have most of your electrical equipment in the building, okay, to be installed in a decentralized manner, like shown in this example, where all the VSD are installed in the wall, okay, near the equipment. And the advantage of this is, of course, we have you have all-in-one concept, okay, with all these tiny little variable speed drives are built in with EMC filter, harmonics, mitigation, and control capabilities. And because of this, there is no other additional cabinet needed to house these components and save gross floor areas. And also the cooling, because of no cabinets, that means no cabinet cooling required. So when the VSD is near the electric motor, okay, you also reduce the risk of EMC, what we call electromagnetic interference, to all your instrumentation of the building. Okay, and lastly, not to mention the ease of maintenance as well. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so of course, ABB, apart from the solution that I shared with you, we have a full portfolio for HVAC application. Okay, so I won't go through every one of them, but basically we have all from the smallest Mickey Mouse inverter, okay, fractions kilowatt to thousands and thousands of kilowatt and also megawatt level. So all level we have a solution on this. Okay, and also we have a dedicated solution for HVAC, specialized software like fire mode, backneck, and harmonics mitigation. Okay, next slide, please. And for the electric motor, ABB is one of the largest electric motor manufacturer in the world as well. And same thing, we have the solution from a small fraction kilowatt to, let's say, very big machines. And we also have one of the class leading or industry leading technology, what we call the IE5 solution with the magnet-free synchronous reluctance motor. Okay. Next slide, please. So ABB has delivered multiple projects for district cooling. And one of the key project is what Steve has also shared, some Singapore Power shared earlier. We also, ABB appreciate the opportunity for basically to work with Singapore Power STC for the scope of automation, electrification, and drives in this project. And other than that, we also have one quite a very sizable project in UAE with Tabret, okay, which is using our variable speed technology as well. Okay. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide. And thank you very much. And looking forward for your question.
Thank you very much, Tiềm, for giving insights and sharing the importance on how important it is with efficiency when you look at motors and also inverters and drives. Those are responsible for a lot of energy consumption in chiller and air conditioning, and of course other sectors as well. So by choosing the right equipment there, you can that will be a part of optimizing a DC cooling system as well as other HVAC systems. Okay, thank you very much. We have 5 very good, interesting speakers and presentations. So we now move on to the Q&A session, and we are running low on time here, but we'll continue to ask some questions here to get the discussion, keep the discussion going, and please let us know in the chat box or the Q&A box if you have any questions, or if you want to raise your hand and ask the question directly. I would like to start with a question here that we got. It's an open question to all of you, actually. So let me see if who want to take this question. So what are the main challenges to develop DC cooling systems in Vietnam? Would you say? Can maybe each of you can give your input to that? We can start with Mr. Cook.
Hi, I hope you can hear me well now.
Yes, yes.
Well, I guess that I see some of the questions are relevant to what I can give the answers to. For example, the first one, which is related to the disposal and the promotion of HFC. No, I see it somewhere, but it is not here.
Maybe we can rephrase it then, Len. So in terms of the national cooling development plan and so forth, how do you include this, the efficiency of chiller, or if you look at a system like DC cooling or a centralized cooling system, can you explain a little bit how that is taking into the national cooling plan?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the national cooling plan is a little bit too much focused on the room air conditioner, which hasn't been extended to other types. So then we would have to work on that further in order to see how more integration is needed. As well as you may know that the NDC has been also submitted by Vietnam, and we are developing the NDC implementation plan. So then the measures and the mitigation actions by different ministries and in terms of energy efficiency, of course, are being taken. So I hope that in the coming time there would be more different tools, not only the National Cooling Action Plan. In terms of refrigeration, in terms of refrigerant management, we have put in the decree, which is being developed right now, and expected to be in effect on the 1st of January. There is quite a comprehensive flow of management through the life cycles of refrigerants. So meaning that from the usage at the beginning, export, import, the user, until the destructions, the reclamations, recovery, etc., will be under management by the government. So I guess that I read somewhere that there's going to be some how to promote the residential with the new refrigerants besides the R32 and the R14A. My answer would be, at the time being, we are implementing the HPMP2 project, which is on HCFC phase down management plan in Vietnam. We are still promoting the use of R32. And there hasn't been any discussion on the new refrigerants replacing that. So I would have questions on that. And the lowest one for the moment we're still using is the R32 of 750 GWP value. And the main challenge, as mentioned by Ms. Huong, that we're gonna have to work on the urban cooling, and there's gonna be the possibility that we work on the 2 pilot cities to demonstrate the urban cooling action plan in the provinces. And we hope that after the project, there's gonna be potential for us to replicate this demonstration to other provinces via the Environmental Protection Fund that being regulated by Monterey. So I understand that they are challenged, but together with the policies and framework being developed at the moment, and with all the technologies available here, we could have that implemented and look for the a bright future to come.
Thank you very much, Tukuk. And maybe it's interesting to keep on doing this capacity buildings, but also so you also get the insights from other projects in the region, and also what can be delivered from the private sector and things like that.
Yeah, precisely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cook. Okay, so I will continue to Ms. Huong Ta. Do you have any input? What do you think about the potential of district cooling in Vietnam?
Yeah, I think that Vietnam has high potentials for district cooling and for urban cooling in different cities, especially in Ho Chi Minh City and also Hanoi. For challenges in implementing those projects like us, like what we are doing right now, the most important thing is about the awareness of both the local government and also the local people on the importance of sustainable cooling development. And also the second challenge for the project is how to mobilize funding for those projects. So I think that, like, for us, that's the main 2 challenges we have to cope for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hongta, for that. So I want to move to Steve from SP Group. And what do you see with the background from your projects in Singapore and China? What do you see? What potential do you see in Vietnam?
Yeah, so I guess where we look at it, is Vietnam is a developing country, right? There will be commercial buildings that will be coming up in the financial spaces. There will also be a lot of retail malls.
We cannot hear you very well, I think. If your microphone.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was saying, Vietnam is a developing country, right? And there will definitely be, a growth of commercial buildings, retail malls, and even residential, right? That will be coming up. And these are very good potential portfolio of buildings, where they are sited together, are very good buildings for district cooling, right? Because there is a diversity of load. You are able to use cooling loads at different timing, right? For example, the commercial buildings typically is a daytime, while residential buildings, they are using aircon typically during the nighttime, right? And that's where you can utilize the same equipment, right, throughout the entire spectrum of the day, right? And I guess Gary will also agree with me that the chillers, right, they are designed and meant to be running 24 hours most of the time, right? Not only 8 hours a day, right? Which, if it's a typical one, just a commercial building, have its own in-building plant, they will only typically run 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? So that's where I think in a scenario whereby we have all these different types of buildings coming together, right? Then it makes the proposition for district cooling even more attractive.
Thank you much. See, one follow-up question just when I have you here. So there was one question on temperature losses in the distribution network. So the pipeline, distribution pipeline. What is your experience on that? Is there a lot of losses?
We don't experience a lot of heat losses, right? Especially in the Marina Bay. In our Marina Bay plant, our network piping housed in what we call as a common service tunnel, right? So it's not just buried underground, but it's actually implemented in a tunnel itself, right? So the heat losses through the pipes itself and the insulation are very, very minimal. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. So let's move on to Gary. With the background from also your the projects you're working on in the region, what do you think about the potential in Vietnam for developing district cooling?
Well, definitely is an enormous opportunity that I'm seeing. I mean, with the experience that we are seeing across the other Asian markets, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. I think in terms of the urbanization, the larger cooling loads, diversity of the usage, definitely, I think district cooling could certainly play a part in Vietnam, like the other ASEAN markets.
Is there any big obstacles you think that you know from other projects in other countries that can be recommended to be overcome? Can you give some example on hurdles or?
Well, I would take maybe an example here, right here in Hong Kong, that we have a district cooling systems. But I think the planning is one of the things that is very important in terms of district cooling system, because it involves a large site, and also it involves the occupants. Sometimes for district cooling systems, by the time that you plan or design the plant, you might not know exactly what the cooling system will be used, or what type of buildings, what portfolio of buildings will be used, and that poses some technical challenge during the design phase. Secondly, I think the government also plays a very significant part of that, because especially in terms of a large-scale development, there will be some sort of engagement. The government and the private sector will have to be some sort of engagement between the two, so that we can get the private sector to have a development of using the district cooling systems and so on.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary. So let's move on to Tiềm. The same question to you. What do you think about the potential of district cooling in Vietnam?
Definitely, I see huge potential. I mean, in big cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, whether is it from the existing, let's say, property to convert it to a district cooling or new development, I think it's huge opportunity, okay, for district cooling. But of course, it comes with challenges, like what all the previous speaker highlighted, in terms of planning, regulation. I mean, also because the concept will be changed from buying electricity to buying new chill water. Okay, so how the consumer in terms of how they pay the energy, the way they pay the energy will be different, and the landlord you also need to accept this the discomfort of without having a chiller plant in their own building. Okay, because this was actually a traditional what in every building what we have in Vietnam, but definitely the opportunity to optimize and everything is tremendous in district cooling.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we can conclude that that there's a need for urban planning to really plan a new development area so you can maximize energy efficiency, maybe not only in cooling but also electricity. But maybe thermal energy could be looked at exactly like the power distribution by utilities. So that's interesting. Okay. So we have a technical question here. I think this is something for Gary. Maybe it is basically how much can you improve efficiency by utilize more data from the building, like having a lot more sensors in rooms and things like that. Is there a potential to improve efficiency by collecting and processing more data?
Yes, I think big data is a trend, and as a matter of fact, in terms of back to the subject that I mentioned in the presentation about what is beneficial in terms of a chiller operation is to create a low lift conditions for the chillers to operate so that it can reach a higher level of energy efficiency. And relating to that, because the chill water will be consumed by so-called a terminal device in the buildings. So not only on the chill water plant design, but from a more holistic view in an overall system, if we are also looking into the airside equipment for the optimizations, that will help in certain way to get, for example, they might not need to have a very low chill water temperature to supply to the air handlers for the comfort cooling. For example, in Singapore, that we are already seeing that many of the buildings in Singapore, traditionally we design the systems in a manner just like a golden rule kind of things, is with 7 degrees C chill water temperature. But if you look into what the Singapore designers are using today through the optimizations on the air terminal devices, today the chill water temperature that they are designing is like 8.5 or even as high as 9 degrees C. And in Singapore, we have a case that we did, even we supply the chill water temperature to like 15 degrees C chill water. And if having that kind of temperature into the design, that certainly helps a lot on the chiller side in terms of getting to the higher energy efficiency level of the chillers.
Great, thank you very much, and Gary, for that. I mean, there's so many opportunities now. There's so many digital tools, sensors, and also all the data power, and also including machine learning and AI to really help process data and to give feedback back to machines and chillers like that. But as you said here, also in the design phase, is a vital role to choose the most efficient solutions. So I think we have another question to Steve here is basically can you give a general answer on what is the payback for the investment of a district cooling system? Can you give any answer to that?
Yep. I guess there is no straight forward answer in terms of the payback, right, or what we call as the return of investment. But it depends on a variety of conditions, such as the type of technical scheme that has been implemented. Who pays for what equipment, like whether to the developer, do they pay for the intake station? Do they pay for the piping, the last mile piping upfront, right? Are there available government subsidies, and even, the ability to, mandate a certain area, right? To say, you take DCS so that you reduce down the risk, right, of not having, sufficient revenue or projected revenue, right? And all this will then, take into account on how much ROI that you'll be able to have. Yeah. So I don't think there is a direct or straightforward answer to say that whether we talk about only 10% or whatever from there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve.
Yep.
Okay, I think we are 20 minutes over time here. So I actually, do any of your speakers, do you have any final comments? You would like to say anything? Okay, so in that case, I think I want to conclude the session here. So I would like to thank all speakers for joining today. I want BTT, Mr. Cook, Hunta, Steve, Gary Shui, Tongva for taking part and contributed to this great session. I also understand that a recording of this session will be shared with all the attendees, so you can watch the webinar again to rewatch your favorite and see if you see the highlights, basically. Okay, so, and also you're very welcome to fill in a survey about the session, and I think they will be addressed in a chat box. So if you go to the chat box, there will be a link to address a survey for this session. So I think we will all be happy if you have the time to do that. Again, thank you very much for attending this session today, and we look forward to see you all again soon. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you and
Thank
Thank you,
goodbye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.